Okay, so now we are going to work on chapter 5. So again, start out with the virtual desktop, right? From the virtual desktop, use the Mozilla Firefox shortcut to get to the Adventures in Social Science Research website. Click on the dataset tab after you get to the companion website and click on the demo.sav link. And that should bring you up to this SPSS data set. So let me get that out of the way. So again, what we're going to do with chapter 5 is we're going to go through these demonstrations. Also in chapter 5, I have a few PowerPoints posted because we're going to be talking about measures of central tendency, like the mean, the median, and the mode, measures of dispersion. And so I put up PowerPoints to just kind of explain some of that for review for most of you. Like last time, we are not going to start with demo 0.1 or 5.1. Instead, we're going to start with demo 5.2. So with demo 5.2, we're just helping us get both the variable list and the output labels. This doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but it will later on through this unit. So when we actually run some analyses, we see the proper labels on our analyses. So first of all, what we're going to do is click on Edit. We're going to go down to Options, and you will see it comes up with General. And what we're going to make sure is that we have display names and then have it as alphabetical. And that is good, and it's already there. If yours is not already there, that is fine. Just make sure you click it where it says display names and it says display alphabetical. All right. From there, before we hit enter to go ahead and say this is okay, click on output and make sure in these drop down menus right here that it says names and labels. So yours may say just labels or just names, so make sure it says names and labels for both the variables and item label shown as, and the same thing with the variable values and the item label shown as. Make sure it says values and labels. And then what you can do on my virtual desktop, it's really hard to scroll down, so you can just hit enter and it will save that for you. So at this point, we should be ready to go. I am going to skip 5.3 in the demo. It's not really, or the SPSS statistics command 5.3, it's not really that important, and we're going to move straight on to the demonstration 5.3 on frequency distributions. So with frequency distributions, what it's going to do is it's going to tell us the number and the percent of respondents that answered a certain way for each variable. So for this example, what the book wants us to do is to look at religion, right? So in order to get a frequency, what we're going to do first is we're going to go to Analyze. We're going to come here to Descriptive Statistics and hit Frequency. All right, and what you will see is it starts this in alphabetical order. What you'll see in the book on page 57, how they got that little box to pop up right there is they just right-clicked, and you will see that it says display variable names and sort alphabetically. You always want to do that. It makes it much easier to find the variables that you are looking for. So if you just right-click real quick and you hit display variable names and sort alphabetically, and if those are clicked, then you can just move off the box and left-click and it will be ready to go. So what we're going to do is run a frequency on religion. Since this is alphabetical, we can just scroll down and you will see religion right here. And once that is highlighted, you can just click over there, click that arrow, and it'll go into variables. Now, if you right-click on religion, you will see variable information. If you click on that, you will pull this box over real quick so you guys can see. You can see the value labels. So the value labels that we looked at in in chapter 4, you can see the same type of information here. So you can see 0 is not applicable, and then you have the different denominations as well as none. You scroll down, and then you will also see that 98 and 99 would be what we're going to later code as missing values, because those again are either don't know or not applicable as well. So just click that X, and we're going to get out of there. And so all we have to do at this point in order to display a frequency table is to make sure that this box is clicked right here, that it's got a check mark in it, and then click OK. And you will see, I'm going to maximize this real quick, you will see we now have a frequency table that shows the number of people who identified as Protestant, Catholic, Jewish, none, other, Buddhist, Hindu, etc., etc., etc. And don't ever look at this percent column where it says just percent, because that includes your don't know, your not applicable answers. Instead, what you want to do is you want to look at this valid percent. So this valid percent column also gives you the percentage of people in your sample that happen to identify in different religious affiliations. So this is really important. A lot of times when you do research, you want to tell people what your sample looks like. So when you run a frequency, that is one way to get those percentages or get those numbers in order to provide that information to your readers. You don't have to worry about the different ways of looking at the view. It's pretty basic. If you close this, you will see that the frequency, or if you hit the minus button, you'll see the frequency goes away. But if you hit the plus, that comes back. You will also see different things here where it has the title and then any notes. It has the active data set. It actually has the statistics. And here's the frequency table. So I find this personally kind of confusing at times, particularly if you're running a lot of data. So I don't really even look at that. But that is a frequency table, very quickly done, very easily done. So I'm going to close that. You don't have to save the contents of the output viewer. What's really nice about your output is if you don't save it, it doesn't close your whole SPSS file. So you can go ahead and click no, and it should close for me. Very good. And now you're back to your data set. Now another nice thing is you can run multiple frequencies at one time. And so if you look at demonstration 5.4, they want us in the book to run a frequency of 3 different variables at the same time. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. Come with the analyze, descriptives, frequencies, and you'll see religion is right here in that variable box, and we want to get rid of that. We can do that one of 2 ways. We can either highlight it and kick it back over, or if it's already there and you don't want to do that, or if you have a lot of variables there, all you have to do is hit reset, and it resets it to a clear kind of screen. So what the book would like us to do is run a frequency on the variable named attend, which is right here, and then a frequency on post life and pray. And what's going to happen is we're going to see 3 frequency tables come up. Again, make sure this is clicked. Click OK. And you will see, if you scroll down, your first frequency table is for that attend variable, or how often do you attend a religious service. The second frequency table is for your belief in post-life or belief in life after death. And the third frequency table is how often does the respondent pray. Okay, so the book does something really goofy on page 63. They start combining some variables together in order to get percentages. Again, remember this first column, the frequency, is just the number of people who answered. So 382 people in this survey answered that they never attend a religious service, and that corresponds again to 25.6% of the sample said they never. Compare that to the 96 people who said that they go to church or attend a religious service more than once a week, or the 6.4% that do that. But on page 63, you will see that they, when they describe this frequency table, they don't actually describe it with all these categories. Instead, they collapse some categories. So you will see if you start with the top variable, they have about weekly and it's 29%. How they got that number is they just added the nearly every week, excuse me on that, nearly every week, and more than once a week. And they combined that and they got to that roughly 29% that you see on that table. And then the 1 to 3 times a month, they added in the once a month and the 2 to 3 times a month. So the 7.0 and 18 or 8.8, that's where they got the roughly 16%. And then the seldom, they added this 6, this 13.2, and this 10.2, and they got roughly 29%. And then they rounded up on the never to 26%. So if you're looking at that table, it's on page 63, and you're a little confused on how they got that data, they just collapsed some of those categories. And that's fine. We will talk about later on, actually in this chapter, how to combine those variables before we run the frequencies, so we don't have to do the adding, and the SPSS will do it on its own. So that is how you run a frequency. Sometimes frequencies are very good. They're very good for nominal data. They're very good for ordinal data. When you get into interval and ratio or those metric data, like age, something like that, frequencies usually aren't the way to go because you'd rather do a mean or a median in those cases. One word of caution, and the book does a very good job explaining this on page 66 or 65, 66, 67, and whatnot, is that SPSS will run statistics even on variables that shouldn't have certain types of statistics run on them. So for an example, we would never run a mean on a nominal variable. But if you ask SPSS to do a mean, for example, for a variable like gender or sex, it will compute it for you. So that's where knowing your statistics, and that's why I put in those PowerPoints, so you could kind of understand the statistics a little better, come into play here. The computer or the program will actually do what you tell it to do, whether if it's right or wrong. So that is how you do a frequency. On your quiz, you will definitely be asked to do frequencies. So I will give you a variable and I will ask you to give me the frequency for that variable. So another example that SPSS or the book would like us to do is to look at how we can get some of those measures of central tendency. So again, let's close out this output. Again, just click no. We don't want to save that. And for the variable sex, we want to know the mode for the variable sex. So we would like to know what is most common, right? So the mode is just the most frequent value that's given. So we want to know if there are more males or more females. So in order to do that, what you will go to is Analyze, and you'll come down here into Descriptives. And the book is a little goofy on this. I'm going to teach you something a little different. You're going to come into Descriptives. You're going to come down here and get Sex. Click OK. And then click Options. Oops. Let me do it this time. Instead, just kidding, not going to do it different for you guys. You're going to go to Analyze. You're going to go to Frequencies again. You're going to reset this. And scroll down to Sex. Click that over. Hit Statistics. Click Mode right here. And then that will give you the mode for sex as well as a frequency table. And so you will see that the mode in this case is 2, and that means that there are more females because female equaled 2. So the mode is 2. There are more females in this study than there are males, and you could double check that by looking at the frequency table. So you can see that there are 54.3% female in this survey and 45.7% of males in this survey. So that is how you find a mode. Now, let's say you did not have this frequency table. You forgot to check that box, and all you know that is the mode is 2. So one way you can figure out what that 2 is click this. Go ahead and not save it, but you could go down to variable view and scroll down to sex. Excuse me. And then on the values, click here and you'll see 2 is female. And that is when you would know that the mode is 2. So that is if you have a nominal or ordinal variable. But what if we have a continuous variable at the interval ratio level, and we need to get a mean and a standard deviation? What do we do to do that? So how we do that is we go up to Analyze, go to Descriptives, go to Descriptives, and go down to Descriptives again, and let's do age. A frequency with age would be very difficult because you have every single age in a frequency, so it's much more feasible to have a mean when it comes to age. So what you want to do is come here and click Options, and you'll make sure that mean is checked and standard deviation. And standard deviation is your measure of dispersion. And again, go back and look at the PowerPoints to explain the measure of the dispersion around the mean or the central tendency, and it'll help you understand that a little better. So if you click Continue, and then you click OK, what you will see, instead of having a frequency table, we have a very small table, and it just gives us the mean, so as well as the minimum and the maximum and the standard deviation. So what this table is telling us is the big N is that there was 1,495 people in this study that gave an answer for age. And the minimum age in this study was 18. The maximum age in this study was 89, but the mean or the average age in this study was 48.22. So the average age was roughly 48 years old, with a standard deviation of 17.71. So that's just telling you kind of how the ages hang and how stable that age is. So this is a really easy way to figure out your measures of central tendency. If you noticed, if you wanted to know what the median age was, you could go back. You could go to frequencies, and we're going to get a really kind of goofy box. Come up here, click age, pop it over here, hit statistics, and take off the mode because we had mode before. Click median. I can show you, I'll put the frequency table in here to show you how goofy the frequency table looks when you have a continuous variable. So when you have a continuous variable and you do a frequency, it'll become a very large table because it's going to give you every single value. So that table is not really useful. So that's why you use a mean in that case. But this gives you a median as well, which is the number that is smack dab in the middle of all the different values that you have. And you will see that the median in this case for age is 47. So because the median and the mean are very, very similar, it means it's a pretty normally distributed distribution of variables. If you also want to know what the mode is for age, or what the most common age was in the study, again, you could go back to frequencies. You could click on the statistics again, take off the mean, and click mode. And the mode again is just the variable that is the most common. And we will see if we scroll up that the mode was 42. So again, this is a pretty normally distributed distribution when it comes to age. So that is all we're going to do. You guys aren't going to have to do any of the printing of your output. Like if you look at demonstration 5.7, you're not going to have to do that. In 5.8, where you're adding headers and footers into your output, that is something you're absolutely not going to have to do. For your quiz, you are going to be calculating means, medians, and modes, and standard deviations. So make sure you guys are pretty familiar and comfortable with doing that and running frequency tables. Again, I highly recommend that you do the lab exercise and use those screencast videos from the website. And again, if you have any questions about this or anything else in the class, give me a phone call or shoot me an email. And I hope you have a good day. Thank you.